excited to see so many familiar faces, and some from my session last Thursday. So this is really exciting. I'm extremely excited about this evening because I've been fangirling Dija for a long time. But before we get into what is going to be a phenomenal session, I just want to quickly say a few things. So first is thank you all guys for being here. It really means a lot. It's 8 p.m. on a Wednesday evening. And I don't take it lightly at all that you've chosen to spend your time in this way with me. So thank you. As many of you know, LBB is short for Life is Beautiful in Balance. And with this session, really, when it comes to great skin, many people think that there are quick fixes that they can use to tackle everything. But what we know is really true is that while there are products that can be super helpful, understanding your own skin is almost like understanding what food is good or bad for your body. It's absolutely key. And for me, that's my mission with LBB. Through our products, our content, our events, is really about sharing those tools that allow us to show up as our best selves, absolutely confident, calm, and in control. So just, I already said this at the start, the chat is open. Please talk amongst each other. It's a space for us to get to know each other, which is great. If, as we go through the session, anything comes to mind, is resonating with you, please put it down, because I do enjoy reading all of the feedback afterwards. And just without further ado, let me introduce Dija. Dija is an aesthetician who's well known in the British beauty community. She sits on the board of several beauty associations in the UK. I didn't try to list them, but some of them include the British Beauty Council. Dija has become a pivotal champion and advocate for providing tools for people of colour to really be educated on their unique skincare needs, whilst also advocating for the service of this sector too. She's led conversations in the House of Commons, Stylist Live. She's also a columnist for Glamour magazine, which I hope most of you are familiar with. And she's not a woman that really rests on her laurels. Before this call, we're just talking about how busy her calendar is. But she's recently launched a boutique skincare space. It's called Westroom Aesthetics. It's in Maida Vale in London. And I've been there. It's a really welcoming, beautiful space. And she stocks some amazing brands there, including ours truly. She's also the multi-award-winning founder of the Black Skin Directory. And what that is, it's an online resource to really, for men and women looking for skincare professionals and dermatologists, really experienced in looking after darker skin tones. So on that note, I'm really excited to say, hey, Dija, the stage is yours.
Wow, it's like I never really have my bio read out in such detail.
But it's so impressive.
I never read my bio in such detail. So yeah, thank you. And also I just want to reiterate and say thank you to everyone who has obviously given up their Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock, you know, to partake in this. It's busy times for everyone. So yeah, it's I think it's very impressive. So thank you for, thank you for having me as well, Nnenna. It's, it's been a long time coming, hooking up. So yeah. And this is obviously a topic close to my heart, talking about, I mean, I know it's late, but I could easily sit here till 10 o'clock. We won't, but yes, I could. And, we're talking about the midlife glow. And this is something that fits quite well within my repertoire, because a lot of my clientele are in this very late 20s, 30s, 40s category. So these are skin types and skin ages that I deal with on a weekly basis and provide advice for on a weekly basis. So it's going to be good. I even made notes. I'm not free winging it. So if you see me kind of looking around, it's because I've got a couple of flip chart papers stuck on all the walls to make sure I don't forget, or, make sure I get everything down, because it is late and it has been a busy day. So in terms of the skin, at, you know, age 30 and age 40, what's going on. I guess we're first of all looking at the physiology of skin. And I know it sounds morbid at this time of night, but the skin ages because the body isn't designed to work forever. It's got a finite period of time that it's working for, all predetermined, not governed by us. So therefore, the skin is in a constant state of maturation. It's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. Therefore, as we age intrinsically, our skin will also age as well, and that aging will be impacted by external factors as much as the internal clock that's counting down. And the skin cells will also be affected, hence our skin, whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, will show the effects of that. And I guess there's a decline, a natural decline and a natural fluctuation that happens. And then what happens to the skin, or the sort of things that can happen as we age. I will talk about what happens, say, within each decade, but generally what you'll find happening because of the fluctuations in hormones and the drop in certain hormones like estrogen and the rise in other hormones like the androgen hormones, you'll find that skin will become thinner. It will be less responsive to treatment. Skin will be drier. It will also be more dehydrated. Though not skin, but related to skin, the bones, so your especially your facial bones, will recede. And whether you have black skin or white skin, you'll find facial drooping happening. The skin starts to droop, the skin starts to get very crepey, and that's because the scaffolding, which is the core scaffolding of the bone and the bony structure underneath, is starting to recede. You will find that things like collagen and elastin, which are the secondary scaffolding to the skin and give us sort of the plumpness and what we'll typically refer to as the youthfulness of skin, you'll find that that also starts to diminish. And again, when that starts to diminish, we're looking at things like lines and wrinkles. And that's because, you know, the body, like I said, the body isn't designed to work forever. And like real life batteries, the skin also has its own, your skin cells also have their own batteries, which is called ATPs. And these will deplete. And you need to keep in, and they will deplete intrinsically, but there are many things you can do to not to stop the process, because you can't stop the process, but there's many things you can do to support skin so the process is slower, or you're sort of combating the process from different angles, so the ATP remains as charged up as possible as you know, as your skin matures and you go through life. But I do think that we always have to have a realistic expectation of our skin and management of our skin, because there is intrinsic aging, you know. So what you have to obviously be more aware of is the external factors that can impact on the skin, which are external factors perhaps led by yourself, or the impact of your lifestyle, or the impact of your work and stressing and all that, which is why I like, you know, the whole term of life is beautiful in balance, because you will, if your life isn't balanced, it will show on your skin in one way or the other, and manifest, whether it be in skin disease or just unhealthiness of the skin, it will manifest. So I guess we'll probably say that the changes that start to happen in the skin, sort of from, in terms of decade, from your mid-20s, so I'm going to sort of take it back 5 years before the age that we're here to speak about. But from your mid-20s, the collagen will start to deplete. And you'll notice collagen depletion more in white skin than you will in black skin, because black skin has much tighter collagen bundles that sit in the dermis. So they sit, the collagen of everybody's skin sits in the second layer of skin. And white skin, because white skin doesn't have the protection of an even melanin content, the collagen will start to deplete earlier, and therefore you'll notice that even as you sort of approach your 30s, early 30s, on white skin, you may start seeing things like fine lines and wrinkles creeping up around the eyes, especially where the skin is much thinner. Whereas on black skin, you won't notice that at all, because the collagen bundles are much thicker. So therefore the structural integrity of the skin is much stronger. And you can put a white lady next to a black lady, and you'll find that there's marked differences in the collagen levels and elastin levels of the skin. So from about the age of 25, collagen will start to deplete. But this will be exacerbated by life, basically by adulting, whether it be through pregnancy, which are massive hormonal upheavals on the skin, through stress. You could have a very stressful job. I once worked with someone who broke out in hives each time she got stressed. I used to have a previous career in banking, and every time you could tell when she was stressed, she broke out in hives, you know, so that can also impact on skin, because that disease and inflammation puts a lot of stress on the skin, so that impacts the aging process of the skin. Illness can impact the skin as well. Likewise, your lifestyle, are you a smoker, can impact the skin. Do you eat well? Do you eat a colorful diet, a colorful plate? Do you, for example, are you taking drugs? You know, and it doesn't have to be illegal drugs or recreational drugs. It could be, are you on medication drugs, as in prescribed medication? That can also impact on the skin as well. So these are, you know, are you on things like birth control, as someone just mentioned there? Again, that's a drug that's impacting on the skin, and it's an external hormone that's been introduced to your system that can impact on the skin as well. So in your 30s, you'll start getting the early signs of aging, like fine lines, and things like sun damage from your teenage years start to show. So if you were not prone necessarily, but if you enjoyed being out in the sun without sun protection, it will now start to show, and you'll start getting things like pigmentation patches coming up. And also, if you are darker skin toned, and you know, where there's a misconception that dark skin doesn't need sunscreen or anything like that, then that will also start to show in a much patchier look to your skin. So in your 30s is when, you know, perhaps the enjoyment of youth starts to pay back. And it's usually in your 30s, I find with a lot of my clients, that's when they're having children, that's when they're getting married. So everything comes at once, you know, and that's when we really need to start looking at managing the skin. You can also have the hormonal impact of conditions like, for example, melasma on the skin, which are very hormonally and UV driven, and can show up in that 30s to 40 age group and progressively get worse as well. You can have things like cheek volume starts to deplete as well. So you can start losing the fat pads under the eyes. And therefore, that's when people start saying, oh, you know, I look tired all the time. I have dark circles, or my dark circles are more pronounced. And part of that is to do with the loss of fat pads, which is why you'll find easily people get tear trough injections to revolumize that area. The skin around the eyes is already very thin, so if you lose the fat pads around there, you basically start seeing what's underneath, and it can cause things like shadows. So you start seeing that in your 30s as well. And you know, the lighter you are, obviously the more obvious the circles and things will be. You can also start to hyperpigment. This is when hyperpigmentation concerns come to the fore. And even things like adult acne, you can start seeing the onset of adult acne, especially if there's a lot of stress in your life. Because stress will stimulate cortisol in your system, which will, again, all like a domino effect, will go ahead and stimulate also testosterone, which will also then stimulate the pilosebaceous unit that controls the sebum content and oil content of your skin. And that stimulation will cause it to produce more oil, and therefore you'll have a higher likelihood of developing things like adult acne, especially in these COVID times where we're all wearing masks as well, the likelihood of those triggers are, are even higher. You'll start seeing much more, if you're say Caucasian skin tone or white skin tone, you start seeing more things like the early signs and formation of age spots and liver spots on the skin as well. Not just on the face, but also things like the back of the hands. You'll start seeing the initial signs of aging and sort of the loss again of collagen. The hands will start taking on a much drier feel to it. I always have clients say, my hands feel much drier now than they did in my 20s, for example, and that's all due to the loss of collagen and also hyaluronic acid in the skin. So if you've ever come across the ingredient hyaluronic acid, which we are always encouraged to apply topically on the skin, it's actually an ingredient that's bioavailable. I call it part of the skin soup. You already have it in the skin, but that will also start to deplete. I spent all day teaching this morning, so my words now getting all jumbled up. That will also start to deplete or diminish, if we want to use that word instead, as we mature. I never like saying the word getting older. As we mature. So you can also start to see some of the very, very early signs of menopause with the drop in estrogen in the skin as it starts to gently decline, which is why they say from the age of 35, women, it's a sort of a much more tedious process to get pregnant if you wanted to have a baby then, because you start to see some of the drop in hormones, especially estrogen as well, and that will fuel more dryness of the skin and more dehydration of the skin as well. So those are sort of the early things that you kind of look out for in your 30s. But obviously, 30 is still fly. A lot of these changes are happening in the dermal areas of the skin. You may not necessarily be seeing that much of the visible changes to the upper layers of the skin, the epidermis, but it's like the skin stores it basically to reveal itself in months and years to come. In your 40s, you're looking at really an exacerbation of what you've experienced in your 30s, but you're probably approaching perimenopause, especially if you are Caucasian and lighter skin tone. You're probably going to see the effects of that perimenopause or early menopause more pronounced in your skin, because now you're actually going to see wrinkles. If you've had a high sugar diet, you're going to also see what we call glycation of the skin, where you get sort of a crisscross pattern of wrinkles on the skin, especially on areas like the chin, and that's the effects of sugar crystallizing collagen and therefore making it brittle, and therefore brittleness will break as well. You'll start to see increased dryness of the skin again, and things like the pigmentation and melasma tends to become, where melasma is a hormonal condition where you can never ever really get rid of melasma. You can manage it so the appearance is faded on the skin, but it's easily triggered by UV. But you start to see the real manifestations of conditions like melasma, because where initially you may have had just a little patch, and usually starts on the tops of the cheek or around the eyes, and this sort of C pattern, you'll now find it sort of, because melasma it's always symmetrical, so you eventually find that, oh, you've got C's on both sides of the face, or you've got it on both sides of your cheeks there, or your upper lip. You'll now start to find more and more of that. The other thing you might find is also an increase in, again, adult acne, but you can also find, because of the increase in androgen hormones in the body, you could also find that facial hair becomes a thing, which you may have never experienced before, but it becomes a thing. If you've ever looked at sort of elderly ladies, you might see that they have 1 or 2 strands of facial hair on the chin. I think ladies get to a certain age where they're like, I don't care actually, and I always see ladies in the supermarket, and I speak to them. I'm, obviously, as someone who works in skin, I'm super hyper conscious of other people's skin, and I'm constantly doing mini analysis in my head when I come across people. And so I see these ladies, older ladies. I live in a village, I live out in Kent, and I live in a little village, and I see the ladies in the farm shop, and I'm just like, I know that they're like, I don't care, I'm way past caring, I'm too old to care. But then if you are like in your 40s and 50s, you probably make it. So, you know, we start need to looking at solutions for that as well. So those are sort of some of the midlife changes that can happen to your skin that can affect your skin glow. And really, we all want to maintain as healthy a skin as possible. So, you know, how do we combat this? What sort of things do we put into place that will negate some of these effects on the skin? So my first thing is that it's never too late to start. So, you know, you don't get to a certain age where you're like, you know what, it's past it now, nothing's going to work. No, it's never too late to start. And I guess I have a philosophy of more progressive versus aggressive. Just because you may think you've left it a bit late to start doesn't mean you kind of go in and go gung-ho and start, you know, throwing products at your skin, start throwing harsh treatments at your skin, because the truth of the matter is you're not going to get the skin that you had when you were 20 or when you were a teenager. That's not going to happen. I have many people come into clinic and say, well, you know, when I just left uni, and I'm like, well, you know, life has moved on a lot since then. You've adulted since then, and that is, you know, those effects are showing on the skin. So we're never going to get there. But what we're going to do is we're going to give you your best skin that we can give you at this current time, and that best skin is going to live with you as long as you maintain it. It's going to live with you as you know, progress through life, and we support your skin at every life change. So I guess what we look at, we look at your entire regimen. We look at how are we exfoliating, for example, exfoliation, especially, and what are we exfoliating? Are we using things like alpha hydroxy acids, like say glycolic acid, lactic acid, mandelic acid, if you like, or are we using mainly enzyme exfoliators like say papaya or pineapple, pomegranate, pumpkin? What are we using? Because that's going to detail the level of stimulation that you will level of stimulation that you're going to do in the dermal layers of your skin. So whether it be if you're using alpha hydroxy acids, you're going to get more stimulation quicker than you would if you were using, say, enzyme for exfoliation. But exfoliation is key to help smooth out the skin. That's what we're looking for, because you don't, the skin, when the things like your skin battery cells are sort of depleting, skin starts to look dull, it's more sluggish, the cell turnover is slower. So if the cell turnover is slower, it means you're not naturally exfoliating as well as you could. So, you know, the skin starts to be rough, and rough skin doesn't bounce light. And when we think about skin looking radiant and amazing, it's because it's bouncing light. That's why we have so many sheen products, you know, available, and people will highlight the top of their cheeks and eyebrows and all that sort of stuff. It's because you want the light to bounce back off the skin and therefore give you a nice glow. But you can achieve that naturally at a much more sort of healthy radiance. But that's not going to happen if you've got lots of dead skin cells sitting on the surface of your skin. Likewise, we want to be stimulating what we call the natural moisturizing factors of the skin, because if you're naturally going to start to experience more dryness or an increase in dryness of the skin and dehydration, the skin has its own natural moisturizing factors. So you may have heard of ingredients like ceramides or cholesterols or essential fatty acids. Those are natural ingredients you already have in your skin, but you can obviously support that. Even with peptides, you can support the skin more by looking for things like moisturizers that have these sort of ingredients in it to help support the skin. You also want to make sure you're using sunscreen. It's never too late to start using sunscreen, because one thing the UV radiation will do is that it will worsen conditions like hyperpigmentation. So, you know, if you are seeing the visible signs of pigmentation coming through on your skin while you're in your mid-30s and 40s, if you are seeing that, then you don't sort of go, oh, well, it's happened now, so therefore I won't. You continue to use sunscreen, or you start to implement sunscreen into your skincare life, because it will stop the worsening of the hyperpigmentation. Likewise, you want to be looking at your antioxidants. If we're talking about the battery pack of the skin cells dying away because they are being attacked by free radical damage, by pollution, by our poor lifestyles, by our stressy lives, we want to be able to protect the skin cells as much as possible. So including antioxidants that help to defend the skin against these sorts of damage is key. I always say, you know, antioxidants are like the insurance policy for your skin. You know, a lot of people think, oh, it doesn't do much. But it's the same. You pay insurance for your car, for your house. Every year you might never get burgled, but if you do get burgled, you know, you really find out the true worth of your insurance policy. And antioxidants are similar to that as well. Chiefly also, we want to be using things like vitamin A in our skincare. So you may have heard of vitamin A, say, as a retinol, for example, which is just one type of vitamin A, but there are many types of vitamin A. So you want to be including a type of vitamin A in your skincare, because that will do all manner of things. It will stimulate collagen and elastin in your skin, which obviously collagen being one of the building blocks to give you a youthful, plump, you know, look to your skin, fill out some of those fine lines, or at least reduce the appearance of them on the skin. You want to be stimulating that. You want to be stimulating naturally hyaluronic acid in your skin, because again, hyaluronic acid plumps up the skin. You also want to be, vitamin A will also exfoliate the skin and give you increased smoothness to the skin. So vitamin A has many roles that it plays within the skin that helps, which is why I always say it's a #1 key product type to have in the skin. Also, you want to be including what we call tyrosinase inhibitors in your skincare. And tyrosinase inhibitors is just a fancy word for saying products or ingredients that help to stop excess pigmentation. So if you are darker skinned, and we know from our research that things like hyperpigmentation tend to distress darker skin tones more because it's more pronounced on the skin. So you definitely want to make sure your routine includes a pigment, something to address pigment, rather than keep on saying tyrosinase inhibitors, something to address pigment. So therefore we're looking at ingredients like alpha-arbutin, kojic acid, licorice extract, niacinamide, vitamin C, which sometimes you'll see as L-ascorbic acid. We're looking at cysteamine. So we're looking at a wide variety of ingredients that can provide this benefit of stopping excessive pigment melanin, or inhibiting that melanin production process. Because if you can do that, then you can limit the impact of pigmentation on the skin. But, you know, I can tell you all these sort of product categories that you can include or should include in your skincare, but, you know, how do you know what to use? You know, are you going to look on social media? What, you know, how are you going to decide what to use? And my #1 thing is go and see someone like myself, or any other esthetician or dermatologist if you want. Actually, I wouldn't say dermatologist. And the reason why I say don't necessarily see a dermatologist for your day-to-day skincare is because they tend to be focused more on skin disease. So therefore, if it's more about your day-to-day skincare, you know, what cleansers should I be using, for example, that's a very expensive appointment to just go and find out what cleanser you should be using, or a very long wait on the NHS to get that sort of information. And you probably will never get referred for that anyway. So if it's your day-to-day skincare, then see an esthetician. I think that's a quicker and easier process. But definitely have a consultation, because you need to understand your skin and what your skin is doing. If you can, have a consultation every 12 to 18 months, because that takes into account your skin as it's changing. Or if you know that you had you yourself personally has had a massive upheaval in your life, then booking in for a skin consultation when things are calmer will be able to address any concerns that have crept up during that stressful period. Because what a skin consultation will help you do as well is develop a routine that works for you, the product categories that work for you. Because it's all well and good me saying, yes, you need all these X, Y, Z. But if you're a busy mom, or, you know, busy businesswoman, and some of the things don't work for you, then it's pointless you just picking and choosing and buying different things yourself. And also, because you need to get a bit of education into what the different ingredients do, and how they're delivered into your skin, and how it works, and that sort of thing. So I guess to finish off before we do questions, what I'll say is, you know, with all the changes that might be happening in your skin, whether it be increased dryness, you know, bone recession, more sort of saggy, droopy skin, having a consultation is key, because that helps establish a plan for yourself. And likewise, that will also include a discussion of what professional treatments you should be using. So I guess you need to look after your skin 30s, 40s, 50s and beyond. If you don't have these product categories in your current skincare regime, then this is what you need to think about in sort of my grand finale. You need to think about what sort of face wash you're using. That's the key product category, and what sort of level of exfoliation or nourishment that face wash is giving your skin. You may need 2 different types of face washes depending on what's going on. Your antioxidant you're going to definitely need. You're going to need a TI, a tyrosinase inhibitor, i.e. a pigment serum. You're going to need a moisturizer that supports your skin. The more the skin matures, the more your need for a good quality moisturizer will be apparent. You're going to need a sunscreen every day, black or white, don't care what color your skin is. You're going to need a sunscreen, minimum SPF 30. You're going to need a vitamin A as your sort of overall treatment for your skin. You're going to need, or you should consider rather, because obviously it's all sort of budget dependent, these things, but you should definitely be considering things like monthly, 4 to 6 weeks at the most, professional treatments that help to stimulate the skin, because the older the skin gets, the more the skin matures, the more sluggish it is. So therefore you need to be basically charging it up, and that's where professional treatments come in, because you're never going to get those sort of strength of products at home. So a combination of good quality products in those product categories I've mentioned, getting a consultation, and having, you know, minimum, I'd say 6 weekly at the most professional treatments will help, in my experience and in my expertise, will help to give you your best skin, no matter what age, but your best skin and best supported skin, so that the impact of external aging is much minimized on the skin, whether you're black or white. That is where we will stop for questions.
That's amazing. No,
that was a quick run through.
I know that there was a lot of information there, which is really helpful. And I'm going to run through the questions, but just hearing you speak would be really good, because I think we understand skincare routines, right? So you talked about cleansing as being an important one to have in your system. Personally, I don't think making a decision on cleansers is a really difficult one, but maybe if there are any pointers on general guidelines, right, on things to look for in your cleanser, and then we can move on to almost the next traditional step, which, you know, for those of us who grew up on Clinique and Clarins, it's like the toner, you know, or all of the things that fall into that bucket. And then we can discuss serums, because you talked a lot about antioxidants, and, you know, there's a long list of them, you know, if we're going out, which ones do we prioritize? And then we can sort of come into that whole world of facial oils and moisturizers, etc. What should, I understand it's specific, but what should a typical skincare starter pack look like almost at this age?
Okay, so for me, or I say for us, a typical skincare starter pack, yes, let's start with our cleansers. Believe it or not, you say it's easy to start with cleansers. A lot of people don't know what they should be using. Some people are still out there throwing water on their face, you know. So what do you wash? I was like, what do you wash your face with in the morning? Oh, I just water. And I'm, oh, okay. So it sounds, I think when you work in skincare like you and I do, it's easy to say, well, that's obvious. For a lot of people, it's not. So I guess if we're looking at a typical skincare starter pack, your cleanser. Now, I like to include a level of exfoliation in as many touch points within a skincare regime as I can. Because to sort of fast forward to your point about toners, I don't necessarily advocate toners. So it never features in any of our regimes. So therefore, if you are including your exfoliation in your morning and your nighttime, then for me, that cancels out the need for toner, especially if you're using good, well formulated products. So a cleanser, you could be looking at a range of different cleansers. Your regular general cleanser would address your skin type, your dominant skin type. So if you are, say, oily skin, we're looking at a cleanser that has a salicylic acid, maybe mixed with a mandelic or glycolic acid in one product. So you could be looking at that. But you may have times of the year where you may suffer a little bit more dryness. So you're looking at a cleanser that maybe is more nourishing and more hydrating. So, you know, you could have 2 different categories of cleansers. I always say if you can develop a cleansing wardrobe, then that's great, because then you're never left out with something to use. If you wear makeup a lot and sunscreen, then you want to be using a pre-cleanse, which is your typical maybe oil-based cleanser. Absolutely love the DHC makeup removing cleansing oils, fantastic. Likewise, the Clinique Take the Day Off Balm sits in the same category. I believe they have it in an oil now as well. So anything that can help sort of dislodge makeup and sunscreen before you actually go in and use your cleanser on your skin is great. I have ladies who sort of just before their period, they get excessively oily. So we may go for just like a pure salicylic acid wash at that time. And they're only using it for a week or so, but it makes all the difference to their skin, just mopping up that excess oil. We wouldn't go for a toner because traditionally, I mean, I think toners have had many sort of lives, I should say, in terms of, at first they were like, oh, well, you know, this is to remove the excess residue. And I'm like, well, just go wash your face again, because clearly your face is still dirty. If you're having to use a toner on a pad and you look at it and you think that's excess residue, I'm like, no, that's just dirt. Wash your face again. So and then we had exfoliating toners, like, you know, we have the P50s, which some people absolutely love, and it's not a bad product, to be honest, but again, absorbed into your cleansing routine. Then you had people who use hydrating toners, and I say, well, just don't use a cleanser that's stripping your skin, because if you are using a cleanser where when you finish, your face feels tight and you get that feeling, it's too stripping. It's not for you. It's got too much astringent in it. So you shouldn't need to then use a hydrating toner to negate the effects of the cleanser you've just used, which was a poor choice for your skin. So if you're using the right or have access to the right type of cleansers, then you haven't stripped the skin bare, or you haven't left the skin with too much residue of product. So you don't need a toner. There are a few instances where it is handy.
It was to get that point across.
Yeah. Oh, right. You don't want me to label the point then. I have a relationship with toners. I can sit here all night and label the point. So yes.
Okay. Let's move on. Which is what people should be using in that phase, right?
Yes. And then obviously antioxidants. And now I don't tend to recommend antioxidants for everybody. But if you say to me things like, I work in banking, or I work in law, I'm a barrister, or you say you work in the square mile and you're out and about a lot, you're sort of going from office to office and that kind of stuff, then I will be like, yes, you need to use an antioxidant because you are out in pollution and London's buses and fumes and all that kind of stuff. So I don't always recommend a standalone antioxidant for most people, but if I am recommending an antioxidant, we're looking at ingredients like say vitamin C, for example. It's one of the key one, but a stable one. Vitamin C is highly unstable, so we're looking at vitamin C. We're looking at ingredients like resveratrol, caffeine, for example, green tea extract.
What are some good brands, if you don't mind, with vitamin C's? Because I know that that's a point, right? You open it and the second it's open, it's almost useless.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't recommend pure vitamin C's because they do have that instability factor. I would go for something like Skin Better Science, and obviously, complete disclaimer, we retail Skin Better Science in my clinic, but it is hands down the best vitamin C you could go for, because it's L-ascorbic acid, but it's within a few 19 other, actually it will make, vitamin C will make it the 19th ingredient, but it's within a product formulation of 19 antioxidants. So therefore it's well formulated and is stabilized. So if the vitamin C for some reason, let's say it goes off, you're not getting you have 18 other antioxidants that are doing a job for you. If you go for pure vitamin C's that sometimes you see in pipettes, you know, clear bottles with pipette, that's going off in 3 minutes. You know, it's not lasting very long.
Ones that
or capsule vitamin C's are also very good. Exuviance does the they're vitamin C ones, and they're orange, and then single use capsules. So obviously you break the capsule top, you apply it to the skin, and that's it. You know, you get pure use of it. You can also get things like vitamin C crystals.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You can also get vitamin C crystals, which you can add to your serums as well. Cosmetics is a brand that does a really nice vitamin C crystal, which you can add to your skincare. I'm not necessarily, a lot of people also use vitamin C for pigmentation.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of vitamin C for pigmentation, because the effects of vitamin C on sort of lightening or fading pigmentation are very secondary to the purpose of vitamin C, which is it's an antioxidant. So any action that it has on pigmentation is secondary. I much prefer for people, especially darker skin tone clients who are suffering from the effects of pigmentation, to have a proper pigmentation serum in their routine. So something that addresses, like with resorcinol or gallic acid or licorice extract, niacinamide, arbutin, kojic acid, a good concoction of those ingredients, because formula is king. So good concoction of those ingredients, because you will have some ingredients which are fading, actively fading pigmentation. You will have some which are, I always call them, they shore up the skin so that pigmentation, impending pigmentation damage is sort of staved off, or the skin is much more resilient to tackle pigmentation.
Okay.
You put your hand up.
I'm going to run through the list of questions that we've had, just so that we make sure at least what's gone through.
I think there's a lot of things going on in the chat.
Yes. So what products? We've talked about hyperpigmentation and melasma. So we'll just leave that for now. What foods should we eat that boost collagen in the skin? Do you want to run through that one really quickly?
A healthy diet. You need a healthy diet. Collagen is made out of protein. So you need to have good fats and good proteins in your diet. But that's mainly what you'd go for. Colorful plate.
Yeah. Great. Can you expand on the role of sleep as we get into midlife? How does that show up, at least in your experience?
The role of poor sleep.
Yes, poor sleep.
The skin is more tired. The skin isn't getting a chance to recover properly. It's more lackluster. The skin is much more, you're more prone to things like inflammation, because your skin cells aren't performing at their best, or they're not strong enough. It's almost like, if you think about the analogy, I always use the analogy for a boxer. If you've trained for your match, and you're going to be standing strong. If you haven't trained for your match, you're going to be falling at the first blow. So if you're not sleeping properly, then your skin it's like just you as a human being. If you don't sleep properly, you're less likely to perform the next day. And over time, that's the same thing that happens to your skin.
Fantastic. We're going to come back to the pivot from banker to esthetician. It wasn't missed. I like how you just slid that in there, but let's do skincare first. Stay in that box.
Yeah, let's stay in skincare.
So I can see, I heard, let's leave that one. Recommendations for the glow for menopausal 50s women, please.
As in product recommendation?
I assume so, Monique. Is that what you mean?
If it's product recommendation, what you need is something. If I was to give you one thing and one thing only, I would say, if you're in the 50s bracket, Skin Better Science Even Tone Serum.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's great. Would you use lactic acid exfoliator before you use hyaluronic acid, or would you use them together?
I would use it before. So if you're using it in your cleanser, for example, or in maybe a toner type product, if you want, I would use it before, because otherwise, if you put the hyaluronic acid on first, then you then remove it with the lactic acid.
Okay, good. Do you recommend one specific AHA over the other, or is a treatment with a mix of multiple AHAs a better approach?
That's a good question. I think it depends what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. Generally, I tend to go for things like glycolic acid and mandelic first. I don't have a preference. There's this whole myth that black skin can't use glycolic acid, and that's an absolute misconception and an absolute myth. So I tend to go for that first. If there's any particular reason why someone is saying, I don't want to use glycolic, or I don't want to use mandelic or anything like that, then yes, we'd go for something like a lactic. But a lactic is hydrating as well, which is not a bad thing. We can go for a polyhydroxy acid. So generally a mix, a couple of different ones together is what I tend to go for, addressing different needs.
And as we're here, just because I know these guys do a lot of single ingredient type products, what are your thoughts on the what are they called? Ordinary.
The Ordinary. I think they're great, and they've done a lot for democratizing, is that the word?
Yes, yes.
Skincare. But other than that, you know, I'm not necessarily recommending their products because it makes people feel like they're skincare chemists mixing different things, and fundamentally formulation is king. You know, a good formula.
Let's keep it simple. I like that, because people don't, it's not the product, it's about the formulation. The chemists are smart enough to know what you need to have in the product and the right mix to make that thing work. Yes, but I think it's all marketing, right? So let's go. So discuss antioxidants the most. We've talked about that. Gimme, what role do you think oral supplements can play in helping our skin glow, especially as we start to hit that midlife point, right? What are those? Because our bodies stop producing certain things, and supplements are a good way of getting them in. Which ones would you say should be looked at?
I'd say if you want to take supplements, you need to speak to your doctor, get a blood test first, and find out what you're missing. I don't think you should take supplements willy-nilly. I think that a lot of the time, it depends on which supplement you're taking, doesn't really get to what your intended use for it is. So if you speak to most dermatologists, they will tell you eat a healthy, balanced diet, and you will get what you need. If you need supplements, your doctor will inform you what you need.
Okay, cool. That sounds fair. So let's continue. So why not hydroquinone? Apparently this is controversial. Why not hydroquinone prescription for black skin? I've seen some FDA approved medical grade products with hydroquinone, but I keep hearing it's bad.
Hydroquinone is not bad at all. No. Hydroquinone is fantastic.
Help us understand what it does. So
hydroquinone is it's a pigment inhibitor, basically. It suppresses melanin in the skin. It has a bad reputation because people use it for skin bleaching, or in very, very high percentages for skin bleaching. Prescribed hydroquinone, like whoever asked the question is saying, FDA approved, is between 2 and 4% short-term use to suppress melanin, say prior to a chemical peel sort of treatment where you don't want melanin to just fire off and cause pigmentation. So hydroquinone is absolutely fine. The problem is the misuse and overuse of hydroquinone. That's why it gets a bad rep. We tend not to talk about hydroquinone a lot in my space because it needs a medical prescription. In the UK, hydroquinone needs a medical prescription. So we tend to go for Cispera, which is the equivalent performance of hydroquinone, but without a medical prescription. And hydroquinone also has a toxicity to it, which affects the skin if you overuse it, which is what happens when you see people who have been skin bleaching and they get this sort of brown or black look to their skin. That's the hydroquinone. After a while, the toxicity poisons the skin, and you get what's called exogenous onychosis, which is the excessive blackness to the skin and damage to the melanin sitting in both the epidermis and dermal layers. Very difficult to get rid of. You may never be able to get rid of it completely. So hydroquinone is absolutely fine. You just need to be under medical supervision to use it.
Good answer. Your skin is glowing, Dija. I'm booking an appointment right now.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Even at this late stage of the day.
Clearly, you're a good advocate for your services.
I have to be.
What kind of treatments should we get every 4 to 6 weeks?
We're looking at things like chemical peels, microneedling, LED light treatments, sometimes mesotherapy if the skin is particularly depleted. Mesotherapy is when you can sort of infuse nutrients into the upper layers of the skin. Even if you're starting to experience things like skin sagging, then we're looking at things like microcurrent, which some people may know as the KC treatment, which is what used to be very popular in Hollywood. But it's microcurrent. It stimulates the muscles of the face. It stimulates the skin cells. The skin is more lifted, or the facial volume is more it's improved as well. So, but in the main, you're looking at things that rejuvenate the skin, which is more the chemical peels, and there's hundreds of types of chemical peels you can have.
Got you. And I'm going to insert one of mine. So we've just come out of lockdown, right? Where a period where at-home skincare and treatment sort of spiked through, especially in at-home electronics. So which ones would you say are quite good at-home things to have? Like I've seen lots
in terms of devices.
Devices, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, generally, any of the sort of LED devices, so light stim is good. If you're really, really flush, you can get what's called a Dermalux Flex, which is more of a hood that you lie down underneath. Now that's got blue light, so therefore if you are acne prone or oily skin prone, that will help to tackle the bacteria on the skin, and red light will stimulate the skin cells and stimulate for collagen renewal as well. So those would be the two I'd go for: light stim, which is a handheld device, or the Dermalux Flex, which is a hood that you sit under, or lie down under rather.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, so let's see other treatments. What do we have? Cleansers, yes. Opinion, yeah, we've done that one. Yep. Let's see, any recommendations for brands? I think we've talked about hyperpigmentation. Have you got favorite brands? I think you mentioned some of them that we've talked about. What would you recommend to treat adult acne?
Adult acne, first of all, we want to calm down inflammation of the skin, because acne is a type of inflammation of the skin. So I would be looking at things like, there's a particular brand called Osmosis, and they have a serum called Epidermal Rescue, and that's basically it turns down inflammation. We'll be looking to do that. We'll be looking at your routine in terms of cleansing. Are we having exfoliants in there? Do we have salicylic acid in there to help mop up that excess oil? Do we have some sort of glycolic or mandelic to exfoliate the skin? We'll be looking again at people who suffer from adult acne will also suffer from pigmentation concerns. So pigmentation serums and vitamin A. What sort of vitamin A do we need to be on? Or do we need a prescribed vitamin A? So do we need tretinoin, which is where people start running for the hills, because maybe you might need some Roaccutane, and they're like, but we'll be looking at that mainly. And treatments, if it's very active acne, we'll probably be looking at things like gentle LED light therapy treatments. We may be able to get away with a few very light chemical peels, but nothing else that's extensive, because that will actually injure the skin.
Okay, that's helpful. And I'm almost putting retinol in a box, because I think it's one that we can enter and never come out. So maybe last. So for someone who's time poor, what are one or two things you recommend I use in my skincare routine every night in addition to moisturizer?
You don't need two, you just need one. You just need a vitamin A product. If you're very time poor, you just need a vitamin A. Vitamin A, you can get to a point where you wash your face and stick your vitamin A on, and that's all you need. So if you're time poor, that's all you need. You don't need anything else.
Excellent. Good. Nice nails, Nnenna. Thank you very much, Anu. I appreciate it. Okay, so I think I've run down the list, and it's good that if anyone has any questions I've missed off, then please, great. We still have 7 minutes left. So maybe we should then delve into vitamin A, because I know as you start to hit, it's almost like serious skincare, right? And there's a whole world out there.
Yeah.
So please just give us like a quick lesson on how to go.
So vitamin A, most people hear of it as retinol, and retinol, which is just literally a type of vitamin A, with vitamin A being, say, the family name. You have retinol, you have retinaldehyde, you have tretinoin, you have alpha-ret, you have retinoid. You have several different types of molecules of vitamin A, all doing slightly different jobs, but overall with the job of rejuvenating the skin. If you need prescription vitamin A, say tretinoin, then that has to obviously come from a doctor. And the reason why is that's the most potent form of vitamin A, which goes to action straight away on your skin. Everything else kind of comes within a vehicle that needs to be unwrapped on the skin. But all vitamin A products that you use needs to be converted to tretinoic acid before it can actually be of benefit to the skin. And that conversion process itself can have a level of irritation attached to it, which is where you have people say, oh, I can't use vitamin A, it does this to my skin and does that to my skin. There is a trick and a skill to using vitamin A, because vitamin A compounds, and it has about a 48-hour life on the skin. So therefore, if you start using vitamin A today and you pile it on today, you pile it on tomorrow, you pile it on the next day, you will start to see your skin go very irritated, it might come up in a bit of a rash, it might be sore, and that's what we call retinization, because you've overused the vitamin A and basically it's compounded in your skin. So we always advise when you first start, maybe just twice a week, opposite ends of the week, maybe a Monday and a Friday, for example, or Thursday, and you do that for a few weeks before you move on to 3 times a week and 4 times a week and so on and so forth. The vitamin A you use will be dependent on your skin concern. Generally, I will go for retinaldehyde vitamin A because it is its conversion process is only one step, which makes it less irritable to the skin. Retinol is a 2-step conversion, and that can create a bit more irritation to the skin than we would like. Especially as human nature, we tend to be heavy-handed. So I've never known anyone to use a pea-sized amount of anything. It's always double the size that's needed. So I tend to go for retinaldehyde because that will negate some of our heavy-handedness to a certain extent. Sometimes we might buffer it on the skin, which means you apply a moisturizer first and then apply the vitamin A. That again is to reduce its potency a little bit. So especially if you're a complete newbie to vitamin A. You also have the vitamin A's like Alpha-Ret, which have an additional exfoliating acid attached to it. So it has a lactic acid and a glycolic acid mix, Alpha-Ret. So it's a really good one. Again, if you're someone who's short for time, Alpha-Ret will exfoliate as well as it will deposit the vitamin A to the skin. So that's a really good one for people short for time. It's doing 2 jobs at once. You have retinoate, which is another very gentle form of vitamin A. And that's from a brand called Medicate. Medicate have sort of patented that retinoate. It's also very gentle. I don't carry it in my clinic because I don't think it's strong enough, but it will suit. There's a lot of people who use it, so there is a section of the market it suits. There's also retinol palmitate, which is it's a supporting type of vitamin A. If your product only has retinol palmitate in it, it's not really going to give you the greatest effects of vitamin A. You tend to find that it's used in conjunction with another vitamin A to boost it a little bit. So, or you can have, sometimes there's bakuchi oil, which some brands will say, is the equivalent of vitamin A. And so therefore, maybe if you're pregnant, perhaps you may not want to use a pure vitamin A, which, obviously clinical trials aren't done on pregnant people. So nobody really knows the effect of topical non-prescribed vitamin A on the skin of someone who is pregnant. But to err on the side of caution, it's always do not use vitamin A when you're pregnant. So you could also opt for something like bakuchi oil, which can give you good performance. I wouldn't say equivalent performance, but good.
I think a lot of these sort of more natural vitamin A options that you mentioned are more about managing skin health, and in the long term, I think that's what a really good moisturizer should do. It should be hitting at a number of things, which just continue to help maintain that health, and then you can then go in with those specific things that can help you. We haven't spoken, I know we're running out of time, but we haven't spoken at length about serums. In fact, I'm doing a blog, which is, because it can be a whole minefield, right? Moisturizer, serum, oil. What do I need? Where does it go in the routine? If there was probably one serum or 2 that you could recommend at this stage, what would you say add, and when probably?
Well, I think serums are dependent on your skin condition and your skin needs. If there's some people who don't need any serums, they can just go for, because the serum kind of really refers to the texture of the product. So you might not need a serum per se, you might just need an antioxidant, which is an all-rounder. But if you had, say, specific concerns about pigmentation, then you'd look for a pigmentation serum. If you had specific concerns about, say, dryness of the skin, you maybe want to go for more hyaluronic acid as your serum post cleansing. You can have oil-based serums, which you can use, some people use them as moisturizers. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of oils. I think they can be a bit clogging to the skin. You can definitely, in winter months, maybe I might be persuaded a little bit more then, as a means of boosting or sealing hydration in the skin. But on a day-to-day basis, a good, well-formulated moisturizers with all the natural moisturizer, mimicking the natural moisturizing factors of the skin is what you need, because skin is a self-balancing organ. If you leave it well alone enough, it will balance itself. And then you can then pinpoint where you need the extra bits of help to come through. So when it comes to serums, what's your skin concern, I guess?
No, good. We've hit 9 o'clock, which is perfect. And look, Dija, you've gone through so much information. It's really interesting. And look, we could really go into much deeper. I want to say,
of course,
thank you so much for your time. I hope everyone feels like their questions have been answered. There's plenty of time. Dija is on social media. You can also reach her through her clinic, and you have to give us the details again for how we can find West Room Aesthetics, because I think you might have a few people coming to book their 4 to 6
literally West Room Aesthetics. That's it. So if you Google West Room Aesthetics,
should they book online or call? What's the best way?
You can book your consultations online. It's easy enough to do via our website, and that gets you in. If you need to call as well or drop us an email, all the details are online as well, and you can drop us an email, and we can also get back to you. So it's probably easier to book online because you can look and pick a time in your diary that suits you.
No, fantastic. And I'll just wrap it up there. Everybody who's been on, I really appreciate you. I hope you guys have learned something from it. We are back here again tomorrow with Robin, who's on here somewhere, and Robin is amazing. So tomorrow we'll be focusing on the mind, and she's talking about how she can help us learn how to use our mind to really declutter our thinking, because a lot of the sort of unhealthy habits that we find it difficult to break all start with the stories that we tell our mind. Robin is a clinical hypnotherapist. She's a functional nutritionist, and she's a master coach. And her whole approach is, I think it's a bit like what Dija said, right? Which is really going through all of those lifestyle factors, and really using that to address and nail some of those issues we have. Come with your questions. Come ready, come relaxed. You guys know your LBB kit. If you have your flight mode, you should absolutely sort of roll it away with you. LBB just turned 1, and we have a code which is available, which gives you a 20% off our entire collection. As you guys know, it's 3 things. It's just essential products that really either streamline your skincare, your skin and mood care, or they complement your longer routines and rituals. So you guys should check us out, and continue to support, please. Tell your friends about the rest of the events. Beyond Robin's, there are so many more. But if you're signed up to our newsletter, you will hear about them, and you can sign up to our newsletter from the website. And in fact, just before we go, if there's time, I'll just pop that link in the chat, so you can pick it up and just sign up straight away. But guys, on that note, I'm going to stop and say thank you. Thank you so much, Dija. I've learned like
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Good night, everybody, and see some of you tomorrow, I hope.
Good night.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye. Fantastic. Okay, who's still on?